All right, well, it's February 5th, and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the video. I'm going to be talking about today about the INTJ and the way people view things differently, and how the thought processes can be completely different from one person to another. And intelligent people, not just, this is not an IQ thing. It's a perception, the way people see facts and evaluate them. Anyway, I spent a long year, of my life in 1975 to 1976, October to October. I was on isolated duty in Diego Garcia, or on Diego Garcia. It's an island in the just south of the equator in the Indian Ocean, and it was 1,200 guys and no women at all on the island, and I was an electronics technician, and I worked actually several different jobs while I was there. Some in the communications center, some in the television and radio station. But in any case, one of my co-workers, a friend of mine named Randy, also an electronics technician, he was an extrovert, and he coaxed me into doing some things that otherwise I'm just not that outgoing on things like this. But he came up with an idea, which I was very thankful for. We had terrible water on Diego Garcia. It was all brackish. There wasn't any real true fresh water there, and it tasted terrible. I mean, they processed it. It was safe to drink, but it tasted bad. And even coffee tasted bad when it was made with that. My wife was kind enough to send me some pre-sweetened Kool-Aid so I could at least drink some water. I love to drink water. Water is, I love it. But that water was terrible. I couldn't drink it. In any case, he came up with this idea, Randy, that we'd take a sheet of really clean plastic, spread it out. It was, several yards wide on each side, and we'd hold up the corners with stakes, and hold it up above a 50-gallon trash can, which had a nice clean plastic bag in it. In the middle of the plastic sheet, punched a hole in it, and so water, when it rained, would collect first on the plastic, and then it'd run down into the trash can. And so we'd get a nice amount of water that we'd capture. It rained on Diego Garcia. It was tropical there, and I'm going to put a link in the description of this down below, if I can find it. There's a Bob Hope video from back in the 60s, which was just a few years before I was there. But they show one of the Diego Garcia rainstorms, and I'm telling you, it rained a bunch. When it rained, it rained. It would come through and rain, and then it would clear right up again. It rained almost every day, but then everything would be fine. The water ran off, and it was like it never happened. Except the coconut palms were all nice and green. Everything was green, but it was the ground didn't collect a lot of water on it. Anyway, so that water tasted so good after we caught it in the trash can. Even the coffee tasted delicious. It was a wonderful idea. I'm really glad. It was funny, the little thing like that. It was a lot of years ago, and I remember the water, how good it tasted. Anyway, Randy and I one time, when we were in the barracks, had a discussion over a little section of the Bible. It was right after, it was in Genesis, when it's talking about right after the flood occurred, and the people, to avoid getting drowned again, decided they were going to build a tower to get up above where where the water could reach so they'd be safe in case that ever happened again. And so they're busy building the tower. And they all speak one language. And the Bible says that God talked with himself and decided that he was going to confuse the language of the people and disperse them. Then it went on to say that God dispersed the people. And then afterwards it said that God confused the language and dispersed the people. Okay, so twice it said he confused the language. Once it didn't mention confusing the language, just the fact he dispersed them. Well, I'm looking at this, and to me it just is clearly, the storyteller is telling us that God confused the language. He decided to do it. He did it. It was done. Randy looked at the same three texts there, three verses, and he came to a completely different conclusion. He felt that the Bible didn't say that God confused the languages. And I'm looking at this, and to me, there's no other interpretation. To him, he felt there was. And as I said, he was an electronics technician, sharp guy. He wasn't stupid. He just looked at it differently than I did. And this is something that's mildly distressing in that, not so much that verse, or those verses. It's not the context, it's the actual event of having two completely different versions of what we're seeing, or hearing, or reading. If something is clear and black and white as that can be confusing to intelligent people, or can come to different conclusions, is it any wonder, first of all, that there's like 200 denominations, Christian denominations, all relying on the same Bible? Is it any wonder that they can come to that many different interpretations of a big book like the Bible? But aside from religion, politics, even science sometimes can be confusing to people if they look at the same data and come to different conclusions. It can be very, well, politically, you can see how violent people can become when they disagree about something, looking at the same exact culture, the same exact society, the same exact events. One group is perfectly happy with the way things are, and another group is violently angry about it. The last election was like that. I mean, one side won, one side lost. The losing side went out and started smashing windows and breaking heads. It's quite troubling to me that people looking at exactly the same information can come to such completely different conclusions about that information, because so much of our life is based on the conclusions we make. We look about us, we make decisions, we choose to do this or choose to do that, and we all live together in the same society. If we were all living on an island, and one person all by himself on an island, it really wouldn't matter so much whether you interpret things one way or another. But when you're all together in cities and countries and on the same planet, rubbing elbows with each other, when you can be that different in your thinking, it can cause some real serious issues. It's troubling that the mental processes can be so radically different and come to such radically different conclusions with the same data, because it will affect how we interface with each other. You will see things one way, I'll see things another way, and while we see things differently, and we may just calmly disagree and smile and go on about our business, not everybody's going to look at it that way. Not everybody's going to be so agreeable. They may disagree violently, angrily, carry grudges, do bad things This happens in a society, and when you get large groups of people feeling disenfranchised, angry, confused about the way things are going, unable to see that if you, well, imagine, for example, imagine trying to explain to somebody the advantages of having your appendix out when your stomach's hurting. If you don't understand about operations and appendixes and what will happen to you if you don't pull it, you may become confused, angry, frightened, upset if somebody wants to operate on you. Let's say you don't have a background in our civilization and our medicine. Say you came from a different culture completely. It could frighten you to death, the idea of somebody opening you up and taking your appendix out. All right, so I know, I've had my appendix out. I know how wonderful that is to be able to do that. I understand that, but somebody else might not, and it could cost them their lives. It's said that it's thought that the one person who died on the Lewis and Clark Corps of Discovery when they went out on their trip out to Oregon, the one guy that died probably died from an appendicitis. That's terrible, you know. Today that would be nothing. It's a we'd have no trouble saving his life, but at the time he died, and they faced Indians and all kinds of dangerous situations as they made their way out to the Pacific Ocean and all the way back. But that's the only guy that got killed, and it's he's the only one that died on the whole thing, and he died pretty early on, you know, so he didn't go through the whole thing and then, you know, die in the middle of it somewhere. I mean, they hadn't really gotten into the heavy-duty part of it yet. It was early in the expedition. Generally, there is truth, I believe, and if there's truth, your perception of it and my perception of it may be different, but it is still there. It still exists, aside from what we believe about it. Having an appendix get infected and flare up and burst on you has a good chance of killing you, no matter what you believe about it. But with politics and much of our choices in life, what you believe does matter, simply because it's going to alter the decisions that you make about it. And this can lead to problems, which you know, as an INTJ, I spend a lot of my life, have all my life, thinking about things, trying to make sense of things, trying to fit things into a pattern, a structure. And I see people get their feelings all tangled up in a certain point of view, getting angry and upset that somebody else has a different point of view, even though this other person that's getting so angry may very well not have really studied the issue, may not have really evaluated all the facts, and yet the amount of emotional energy that they bring to that particular issue would make you think that they'd spent their whole life studying it. Again, this is troubling to me because it can lead to problems for the society. And yet, trying to find a solution for this problem, it's really hard to see. I mean, as long as you have people, you're going to have this issue. And I really don't see a way around it. But it's something that we have to somehow deal with. So anyway, that's my thought for today. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a good one. We'll see you next time.